from second side, the question of constitutionalism in Uganda and the battle against corruption. But intervention can be made for
in the desired objective. The tug of war between Parliament and the Executive continues to play out, despite a clear demarcation in the 1995 Constitution as amended on what the two institutions are supposed to do. This time around, the litmus test has been on Article 95, subsection 5, which grants the MPs the right to petition for the recall of Parliament from recess to discuss a matter they deem important. The MPs have today petitioned the Speaker. Now, it became evident previously that the President is opposed to the move and has also discouraged some MPs through the NRM party structure not to sign the petition. Some people argue that the Ugandan constitution is not perfect and that some parts need to be revisited. The Ugandan Parliament has powers to appropriate the national budget, pass laws, carry out oversight, and approve presidential appointments. It also issues directives asking the executive to make pronouncements on burning issues. Now, the Parliament can also remove from office a sitting president through impeachment, but the president currently has no powers to disband or dissolve Parliament. From this explanation, the executive cannot act on any matter without approval from Parliament. However, the presidency still holds the executive powers, and some people have even suggested that some of these powers should actually be trimmed. Our guest tonight, Honorable Bettie Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, and you most welcome, Honorable Bettie Kamya.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Honorable Mukitaale Birahwa, BUliisa County MP, also Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on the National Economy. You're most welcome, Honorable Birahwa.
Happy New Year, Edmond, and Happy New Year, Radio 1 listeners, and nice being back here with the President of Honorable Bettie Kamya. We once used to have the program here together, so happy to be with her again.
Me too.
Right, Honorable Bettie Kamya, looking at Parliament, Parliament can remove a president, the president cannot remove Parliament. Is the legislature more powerful than the executive?
Well, I am one of those people mentioned here who think that we have a constitution that has a lot of internal contradictions, and because of those contradictions, it cannot deliver what we intended it to deliver. That is democratic governance, because of those serious contradictions. Is Parliament more powerful than the executive? They are actually supposed to be, when you talk about separation of powers, and you say the state or government runs on three pillars of the state, and those pillars of the state are supposed to be independent, each one doing their own, the principle of separation of power and good governance. Each one is supposed to do its job well and independently, and at the end of the day we're supposed to have a good governance delivering good services. Now, in the case of Uganda, you have the presidency or a president who appoints 20% of Parliament, directly appointed. That is the 10 soldiers and say the 70 ministers. Those are directly appointed by the president. And then the others, many of them, actually behave in such a way that, or rather, they all hope that the president will notice them and raise them from the back benches to positions of ministers or beyond. And even then, even outside Parliament, they know or they have observed that the president can also sort them out using his constitutional responsibilities or privileges or authority. He can sort, or she can sort them out. So you find that on the one hand, the Constitution gives Parliament a lot of power, but the ammunition, real ammunition, are with the president. So the president ends up winning in the case of a contest. That's where you weigh who has power. The president ends up winning most of all of the contests. And I'll put this in I'll give you an example. I mean, it's like you say the leader, the clan leader is very powerful. You know, he can sack you from the clan, or he can do a lot of things. But when you call a meeting, he asks, you are the one who gave him transport to come. Or he's expecting you to give him transport to
back to his residence.
Back to his residence. Your problem, he has already asked you for money for school fees for his children. I mean, he has power, all right, but the power is so lame because he doesn't have the capacity to take you on. Now, that's what almost Parliament is like with the president. Here's the president, or in fact not just Parliament, if you like, even the executive, I mean the judiciary. Here's the president who appoints the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, the Principal Judge, judges of the High Court, justices of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, and Constitutional Court. They are all appointed by the president. And in Parliament, as I said, he appoints, and he appoints 20% of Parliament, and then the rest of the state infrastructure. The state infrastructure, just name anybody.
What do you mean?
You know, there are two things that we need to separate: government and the state. Government is a management body on a management contract. In the case of Uganda, 5 years. In the case of America, 4 years. In the case of Rwanda, 7 years. And government is clearly partisan because it expresses itself in partisan ways and has membership. The state, on the other side, is not, and by the way, the 5-year contract does not even have to be, may not be renewed, or may not even complete the term. If, for instance, the president dies or resigns or impeached, that regime ends there. Whereas the state is supposed to be permanent and non-partisan, providing any government that comes and all citizens, without bias, services and support. But what has happened in the Constitution of Uganda is that we have fused both government and the state, and all of them now are NRM, because the president has appointed ambassadors, RDCs, bodies of boards of governing statutory bodies, commissions. The president has just appointed NRM politicians who failed or who behave well and tore the party line. So the entire state is, you know. So when you want to take on the president, he has the state on one side, all of it, and then he has the government, and then he has the national, the consolidated fund, and then he has the police, and then he has the army, and then the parliament has these lame provisions in the constitution and their mouths and lips. It is so lopsided in my view that whereas the spirit of the constitution was to make the two or the three arms of government equally powerful and independent, the actual is that the president is so powerful that indeed he has won every contest that has come in parliament.
So how do you explain the current standoff? If the president is that powerful, why is the current standoff persistent?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work. I mean, there will be some battles are tougher than others. Some battles are tougher than others, and we should not even be having any battles. If we had a good constitution, we don't need these battles. But we're precisely having those battles because of these contradictions, and we need to find a remedy so that the executive and parliament are not always locked in battles. It takes away the taxpayer is the one who pays for the losses and the wounds. It's the taxpayer who licks the wounds. The president and the parliament can flex their muscles, but at the end of the day, we pay. So we've got to find a remedy for the battles.
Honorable Mukitaale Birahwa, is here in parliament at the moment, do you think this is healthy for the development of institutions, the current standoff specifically?
Yeah, first of all, It's interesting, around 2007, 2006, when we had our debate here, I was espousing 80% of what Honorable Bettie was saying, and I was saying, I have said in 2005, during the constitutional amendment, that we should not be looking at the terms of the president, but the powers of the president vis-a-vis the parliament. That was my debate then. I wasn't an MP. And I remember when we came here, I tried to say that was my position, but it's not what is prevailing as per the constitutional arrangement. By then, my sister was still in the House. So I'm happy that that level of debate, when I listened to her recently raising this issue in different fora, I liked the level of the debate. But I would really want to add and say, first of all, President Museveni is going to be the last such powerful president. And I've said it here on this program before. The institutions founded by the NRM will only be seen when the founders are not in power. It's very difficult to test them when they're still around. You know, the perennial, the longevity, the goodwill of President Yoweri Museveni, His Excellency, is not a small thing. And the narrative of Honorable Bettie is largely true. There's no judge who was not appointed by President Museveni. There's no PS who is not. That's a fact. Now, that again takes us, the ideal, and not utopia, because the two are so different, is that it is expected that after every election, given the different scenarios in different countries, in developed countries where institutions are stronger, it wouldn't matter, for example, in UK, to have no term limits. But in our scenario, we are seeing this problem because it is President Museveni who put in place the constitution, who worked hard to do some of these things. So right now, we are beginning to see a bit of negation. But we need to be very careful, because independence of parliament and executive is not necessarily, does not mean they are not interdependent. Because even when you are doing oversight, you can call it complementary. I'm actually against, aware of our limitations, aware of our excesses. I am opposed to executive being part of parliament. I am opposed. It has been my position. I've said it here many times. Because I know the dangers it has. Now, what it calls, given what we have in our constitution, is restraint, is tolerance, is coexistence, is respect of institution. If we all respect each institution, we would know as parliament that we have our role. The budget is our response. Actually, at times I blame ourselves as parliament why we give executive too much leverage on budget, because it's our responsibility. But then also at times I don't want us to become micromanagers as if we are implementers, because I am very clear we are not. You remember the temptation we had in the parliament when the interest rate debate came. Would we direct and say bank has reduced interest rate? I would have gone beyond our mandate. Ours was to push Bank of Uganda with its regulation, government, Ministry of Finance to incentivize, because it's not only the banking sector side, there's also the productivity supply side, which you have to incentivize to make sure that there is an equilibrium. So it is very important that the debate is taking this level, and for me, I'm very happy. And indeed, what in others call in political science the fusion. If you have 70, I've always said, if you have 70 ministers in parliament, and if you just everybody was present in attendance of quorum of 130, you have the day. So, so it requires a lot of restraint. It requires a lot of national goodwill, political will, to be able to respect the institutions. Of course, I said the other day, nobody should be debating whether parliament has a constitutional, can be recalled on a petition. That's not for debate. But also, you cannot dismiss on the other side that the president of the day is elected with a government with a majority. So what should not have come out is that anybody can stop the other. Like Parliament cannot stop cabinet from sitting, President cannot stop Parliament from being recalled. What the President can do, and any serious person in charge should do, is to use a persuasive, because the NRM will have the numbers. So you talk the numbers to make sure either if the signatures cannot be raised, then you can mobilize as the party, because this problem can be solved in either way. The NRM proactively, within its own volition, can decide to address the impasse without necessarily having Parliament being recalled. Yes. It can be addressed.
How can the NRM do that?
Even within a caucus, it can do that and say we have these challenges, we have these challenges, we have these challenges. The other way is the moment the signatures have been raised, still, it is as the government of the day, you must come and defend your position. Come and explain your position. And again, what I'm seeing here, we seem to be developing too much of hardline. We started very well without a polarized parliament, and I would want to request we don't polarize parliament, because a lot of these debates are not so partisan. Some of these matters are matters of the common good. Some, like the fight against corruption, the budget issues, health, welfare for our people. This is what we promised as NRM in the manifesto. So I don't think even we need to be pushed by anybody. So to me, it's really the culture. You know, there are some hardliners who seem to be taking the center stage, and that's unfortunate. What we need is to agree that when we are talking about health services, it does not matter whether you are in NRM or in opposition. We are all elected the same, yes. The same common good. So on matters of national affairs, we should not be seen to be divided. But also, the other mix is that the moment you have this kind of parliament where the executive, you know, there's a difference between the parliamentary democracy and the presidential system.
Yes.
You know, the moment you have that presidential system where the president is elected by that suffrage, he's challenging you to say, you are elected by the people. I was also elected. It's different from an arrangement where Milton Obote was not elected by
the popular vote. Yes.
It is his party which took the majority and therefore anointed him, if I can, for lack of a better word, made him a president. So this kind of mix is a very big challenge. But what's most important is the spirit of putting the country first, of knowing that we can be independent but at the same time interdependent, that we can be complementary to each other. We are not, one is not serving Somalia, another one is not serving DRC, we are serving Uganda, the common good. That's what I'm talking about. We need to respect institutions, but also there is what we call minimum agenda and maximum agenda. That creates hardline positions, that creates fundamentalism, that creates we used to my neighbors, I'm a Mitchellite, but my neighbors in North Court used to say, I either win or you lose. Yes. So from the word go, there is no persuasion. So we need to introduce slightly more persuasion in our politics. So that whoever has a superior idea takes the day. We should avoid this business of going into something and say, this must be the position. Because I sympathize with the speaker. Many times you hear people accusing the speaker of so many things. The speaker is chairing. The speaker can guide, but however, the speaker is expected to listen to the both sides in a multi-party system.
Yes.
If what you're presenting, before you talk about, you know, these days I hear a lot of hankering about voting and voting. Before you talk about voting, you should bring the issues, you should defend the position, and if whatever side is more persuading, yes, then you can take it. So even before you go into voting, you can use consensus and say nay or no. So the culture of intolerance which is beginning to emerge, the hardliners on either side which are beginning to emerge, to me are a very big threat. And even earlier I was here and said that we seem to be politician, the political class of this country is becoming weaker. Some of the problems supposed to be discussed in the inter-party dialogue, in the iPod, we expect General Kayura and his boys to sort out this. It's not possible. So, let's have more space. And remember the other last debate I made here. Not because Bettie is here, I said, for me, I have no problem. If to have a more inclusive, a national dialogue, a parliament, I would have no problem to have an amendment which provides for all leaders of political opinions, more so the presidential candidates, to be in parliament. I have been saying one of the reasons why some of these people are on the street and in Exchequer going for lunch is they have no space. There is no inter-party dialogue, there is no iPod, so why do you expect them to go? So we need to think of more inclusion, to more participation, and these leaders should be allowed to give alternative views in parliament, because the leader of opposition is not exactly the head of the opposition.
Well, in the end, you'll find the three.
I think that you got, Stephen, well, I largely agree with my friend Honorable Mukitaale, whom I respect very much, and he knows that. I think that we risk getting confused and start walking in our own confusion. Instead of finding compromise positions, I think we should clean up our constitution so that we have a constitution that can deliver democratic governance. Instead of finding ways of including people so that they find space, for me, the spirit of the constitution, at least the constitution that is seeking to have democratic governance, should be or is that, first of all, you have free and fair elections.
We already have that every 5 years.
Okay, I'm just talking about the spirit of the constitution of democracy.
Yes.
Is that you have a free and fair election. Out of that free and fair election, you elect a president among many contestants based on manifesto appeal. So the president goes to implement. People are saying, we love your manifesto. You go and implement your manifesto. And the people are saying, we are going to give you our taxes for you to implement that manifesto.
Yes.
Manifesto. And we give you 5 years. And pick your team, the cabinet. We shall come back here after 5 years for performance review. So the president, under normal circumstances, should have minimum, for lack of another word, interference in implementation of that manifesto. On the other hand, the task of Parliament, which is in the Constitution, the only one they say in Article 79 is to make laws for the order, peace, development, and good governance.
All right.
Now, if we don't have laws that give us that, then Parliament is not doing their job.
All right, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We'll go for a break. We'll be back. To stay tuned.
Uganda Communications Commission is currently conducting nationwide mandatory SIM card registration. Register your SIM card in a few easy steps. Visit your telecom operator's customer care center or any other designated registration center and provide your phone number, a copy of a valid ID or any other valid ID with accompanying photographs such as a passport, driver's permit, voter's card, or a letter from your LC. Information on your physical address or residence will also be required. SIM card registration protects mobile phone users from incidences of fraud, incitement, terrorism, and hate messages, among others. Please note that SIM card registration is mandatory, and those who fail to register risk having their SIM cards deactivated. The registration deadline is 31st March 2013. All information shall remain confidential. Let's make communication safe. Register your SIM card today.
Discover the new invigorating taste of Red Vodka Lemon. Red Vodka Lemon. Reinvent the night. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Welcome Welcome to the MTN Service Center, sir. How can I help you?
We are here to buy MTN SIM cards.
Okay.
Meet my wife and my daughter and my son. This is my father, my mother and my cousin Sylvia.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Hey, I need even for my auntie piece. Hey, come close, auntie piece. Behind her is my mechanic and my newspaper vendor and my boss and the pastor.
Okay, sir.
This Christmas, buy an MTN SIM card to win free airtime for a year. Dial *188# to win. 250 winners will immediately be notified on SMS each day. Win free airtime for a year with MTN this Christmas. Terms and conditions apply.
And of course, there is my brother, my Rectisiran, my Bramba, and my Baba's best friend's girlfriend.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back. On Spectrum tonight, the quest for constitutionalism in Uganda and the battle against corruption. What interventions can the nation aspire for to attain the desired objectives? Our guests tonight, Honorable Bettie Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, Honorable Stephen Mukitaale Birahwa, BUliisa County MP, Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on the National Economy. We've been talking about constitutionalism and the challenges there is. So we'll talk about that briefly. Then we'll talk about Black Monday. You dressed in something that's not exactly black, but we'll talk about Black Monday and police sending of these men who are supposed to be helping President Museveni fight corruption on the streets. But first of all, you talk about the separation of powers. Yes, go on.
Yeah, so really, for me, instead of making arrangements to sort out the consequences, bad consequences of a highly contradictory constitution, we should sort out the constitution, clean up the constitution, so that we do not deal the consequences of a contradictory. So the proposals that Stephen is making, we are trying to sort out that we are dealing with the consequences of a constitution that is not well.
So we should go to the roots. Cut the roots.
Let's go to the roots and do a good constitution, so that the executive role is, by the way, Stephen, you said the president was elected by the people. He was elected to implement his manifesto. And Parliament is elected to make us good laws. Right. But when the president goes beyond implementing manifesto to the state, you know, the state, as I said, is permanent. It is infrastructure. Right. And it's supposed to serve everybody in a non-partisan manner. So when you think that because the president was elected by the people, so he should appoint the chairman of the Electoral Commission, appoint the IGP, appoint all the judges, appoint, then you're missing the point.
Honorable Birahwa, what is likely to happen now that this petition has been sent to the Speaker's Parliament, the Speaker's office?
Naturally, the Speaker has to conform within the period stipulated 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yes.
My worry is the timing, because the 3 weeks is about the time we're supposed to report back. 3 weeks will be the end of March, and we're supposed to report back the first week of February. The timing is not so much on the side of the of resuming, but also I am really an advocate of nation building. Before I went to Parliament, this is what I was speaking for here on Radio 1. And I wouldn't want animosity, I wouldn't want a stampede. The Speaker, much as we are independent, I'm sure is expected to compare notes with other arms of government, because it would not be proper if, for example, I know one would say that caucus has nothing to do with parliamentary calendar, but that is utopia, because in real sense the NRM is a majority. So if NRM has already a calendar to go for a retreat in Chankwanzi for 10 days already designated, it would not be in the spirit of nation building.
It's not 10 days, about 5 days.
It's 10 days. It wouldn't be in the spirit of nation building to try and cause a stampede. The best would be to either, much as we talk of independence, the independence is not intended to cause a clash. We should work towards harmony for the good of our country. We should provide leadership. We want to not scare and we don't talk about investors, we don't talk about foreign. There are so many Uganda investors who are doing so well, including farmers. Even if by the way, our voters are not very happy when they hear this clash and strong language between leaders. So the best would be to call Parliament tomorrow, so that by the time NRM we are retreating to Chankwanzi, we have agreed. Or it has naturally to be after Chankwanzi. This is really in the spirit of, and that's what I'm saying. Where is the inter-party dialogue? Where is the iPod? You know, because this is provided for. But the other point I want to make, I congratulate Kenya. The other day I was really looking at the achievements in their constitution. They have reduced the powers of the president. But remember, I have always said I don't believe in winner takes all. I am for pluralism, but I don't support winner takes all. Not in terms of ideals, but in practical sense. Kenya, like Zimbabwe, accepted to have a government of national unity after crisis. You don't have to do that. You can constitutionalize that. So that's why, for me, responding to the other point my sister made, me, I am not for winner takes all. I am for a government of national unity, aware that we have not yet developed fully. Even our political parties are not so ideologically different. Most of these people, it's about who has left NRM and has gone where, and you know. So until we have that level of interest groups, of farmers, people who are strong on issues like federal or devolution of power, until we have that delineation, we are just a category. And therefore, in this category, for me, in a broad-based arrangement, in an interim arrangement, I have no problem to have a government of national unity. And actually, to me, if I'm allowed to propose at an appropriate time, Uganda is now more due for another transition than ever before. Uganda is now more due for a national dialogue. So that national dialogue. Yes, the national dialogue will require to discuss. People are failing to discuss about issues of security. When we are required to discuss, ask, what about the army? What about the police? You know, what about the jobs? But when we should bring this in the realm of a national debate. And when you talk about the next, for me, I was telling those who are talking about third-term debate, let's talk about the national dialogue and interim arrangement. Give it a calendar, 5 years. Say police must be this, the old one must be retired, the areas where have 2 million, the army should not recruit again. Let's move on. BUliisa, which has no single measure, should have also one, you know, that kind of thing. And that's how we shall move the country. With some bold debate on our ugly past and agree how to proceed. Let's talk about accommodation.
Thank you, Honorable Birahwa. Let's talk about the Black Monday anti-corruption movement. Today, members of civil society kicked off their Black Monday campaign against the theft of public funds. Now, all Ugandans have been asked to dress up in black as a sign of mourning and also desist from associating with or stealing public money. The campaign has encouraged people boycotting such people, not inviting them to social events, and they say this is a strategy to help the public get involved in the fight against corruption. 2 people were arrested today, Arthur Larocque of Action Aid and Leonard Okello, another activist. They were released later as they distributed leaflets and newsletters. Honorable Kamya, why did police react? They are helping President Museveni implement his manifesto. He said he would fight corruption. Why do they fight the president's friends?
I think police is just all over the place. I don't know whether they know what they are supposed to do. I think they are so terrified of not knowing what to do that they are safer doing everything. I think they feel safer doing everything. You know, on the 17th of, I'll give an example. On the 17th of December, we went to Lira, Uganda Federal Alliance, to launch the referendum. And we had given notice. But when we got there, the security meeting sat by the RDC, the DPC, the RCC, the repeat, all those CCs, those some things. Security meeting sat, and they said no, they should not allow us to hold to launch our referendum because
the meeting in the room had become a security risk.
Yeah, the reason they gave us in writing was that they hear that we are collecting signatures to amend the constitution to trim the powers of the president,
which is a bad thing.
No, for them it was unthinkable. He said, no, we shall be misunderstood. That's the reason they gave us in writing. We shall, the Lira local, the municipality, Lira district leadership will be misunderstood to to be fighting the president. So they don't even care to understand the law, the provisions of the constitution. They just are so nervous of annoying the president that they will just do anything. And we were forced to call Honorable Frank Tumwebaze,
yes,
Minister in charge of the presidency, to tell these people that it is okay, the president will not be annoyed.
Oh, what did he tell them in the end?
Can you imagine, eh?
What did he tell them? That the president would be annoyed.
Yeah, Frank said, no, it's okay. The president will not be annoyed.
So they said, go on, madam.
No, but they said, no, they're still nervous. They didn't, I think they know what happens. They did not trust Frank enough. So they really gave us a serious trouble. So I think this is what is happening with the police. They're so nervous on how they will be. They don't know what they're not confident in their jobs. And I'll tell you why. To tell you a bit, I mean, what happened in Kenya, for instance, to add on to what Stephen Mukitaale said. In Kenya, after amending the new constitution, the Inspector General of Police is not appointed by the president.
He applies for the job.
He applies for the job. The Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, are not, the Chairman of the Electoral Commission, are not appointed by the president. But here is a IGP who is a cadre, who is a historical, who went through Tanul. He's protecting his job as much as he's protecting the president. So it all goes back to the problem with our constitution.
Of course, like you said, the Chief Justice in Kenya is interviewed live on television. The first one who has an earring.
Yes, but
through that process. However, Birahwa, very briefly before you hear from the listeners, the president has decided he's going to fight corruption. How can civil society, how can the Republic help him without being misunderstood?
For me, I commend everybody who's fighting corruption, and we need to fight it in all angles. The executive, parliament, media, you're doing a good job, the civil society, and I think that we should support them. In one of the conferences recently, I was making a plea to the IGP to exempt the civil society and media to do as much as possible in exposing corruption, because if he doesn't, the citizens, the landless, the jobless, not very far from now, will cause a revolution in this country.
What do you mean? Why do you say those?
If you see, we are almost being held hostage by criminals.
But you're an NRM. How can you make such statements?
No, please. In NRM we have very brilliant people who think beyond my being in office today. We need to look at corruption as terrorism. You know. And if we look at corruption as terrorism, then police will support.
But we're fighting this system.
We will support those who are fighting it.
We're fighting people who steal signposts. Shoot them on sight.
Even scaring. I had the minister.
Shoot them on sight. I want to destroy this country.
Let me tell you. I have said here, I support the French system. The corrupt should be guilty until proved innocent. I am for attaching the property. And I'm requesting cabinet to immediately give us a clearance, because we have a bill in Parliament, a private member's bill, which intends to really making this attachment.
Simbas.
Yes, Simba and others. I am for that, because what we need to be very careful, because if we don't do that, we have IGG, we have CID, we have anti-corruption court, we have all these institutions. You know, the other day I was laughing when, I don't want police to overstretch itself because it's not possible. The other day when our wives of policemen were...
They came banging saucepans.
So what would they have done? So I don't want us to go there, because my problem is, I have always said here, there is a nexus between corruption and privatization and liberalization.
All right, maybe we'll talk about that topic probably.
Because a policeman who is investigating Kazinda has not paid school fees for his kid next month. What do you expect that policeman to do? A magistrate, a judge, people in the court system are poor and underpaid, and have been complaining in Parliament. While underpaid judges, the same ministry is the biggest tenant in Kampala. Do you know how many courts are being hired? The money they have hired, they have rented, they have built a complex. So we need to really think seriously about social protection.
Let's hear from the listeners.
About how the remuneration of these people, about what government has provided, free health. That's why I support the health insurance scheme, but not only health insurance, but other schemes, education, free education, because these officers government should be providing education for the children free. If not, they will not manage the Kazinda.
Let's hear from the listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. Our numbers 0414 348 111, 0312 260390, 0312 261390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello?
Spectrum, hello?
Yes, my name is Businja.
Yes, Mr. Businja.
The voice at the studios, most especially Bettie. Yeah. Now, to my good friend, Mr. Birahwa, you know, it would have been better for these MPs who are just from the government if they were not to be effectively. If somebody said that maybe I would like to get somebody who can sleep and wake up and vote, how do you think that person is going to behave, and how do you think is going to defend the Number two, this business of saying that maybe there is this business of going to Chambwandi, we cannot have parliament, the convening is very wrong. Remember, FCC went to voting. The speaker said, I'm not aware, and they went ahead and voted on that. Thank you.
Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, your name?
I'm Martin.
Yes, Martin.
My question to the next slide is, do we have bad constitutionalism and a good constitutionalism? Because here, when you have a bad constitution, as long as you follow it, conform to it, it is the practice of what constitutionalism. When you have a good one, you have constitutionalism. So I find that we have bad and good constitutionalism. But when you look at the serious problem, that the Parliament will reconvene the government body and then the constitutional provision for Parliament when they have a special item to reconvene, then at the end of the day, the CEO's idea is the MPs, then we shall find that one individual is above the Constitution.
Spectrum, hello? Can you switch off your radio, walk away from it?
Yes, Spectrum.
Your name? Yes, this is Spectrum. Your name? Michael, yes.
Now, this is Birahwa. Birahwa, what do you define by corruption? You say that corruption means money taken by opium profit. You say corruption is money taken by the Mangalore. Corruption is right from the grassroots. If we are to fight corruption, we must go down at family level. We must go down at community level to educate people masses about taking a private corruption and not taking money to treat corruption. A teacher gets money from me to give my child experience so money is corruption. Corruption is so far-reaching, and until they realize that taking such things are corruption, only then can we fight corruption. But then people like you, Birahwa, who think that corruption is just only as the big center, excuse me, you are quoting wrong.
I have not said so.
Right, okay. All right. Maybe the bigger monies at the top are the main concern. There's still a little bit at the bottom. At the top, it goes in billions. Spectrum, hello? Good evening, your name? Come again? Yes, A.M.
But I want to disagree with Honorable Kizito when you say that Uganda needs another translation, another plan. I know that's clear. We have to vote after 5 years. So when you say we need a translation, I don't understand you because you can only put it to government. Now you are telling against your own.
Spectrum, hello? Good evening, your name?
My name is Owere.
Mr. Owere, yes?
I greet my colleague, Honorable Mukitaale, the President of Federal Alliance.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say this. This Parliament, per se, which is now standing against the President, is not President's making. I know President's problem was that when he selected cabinet, there are people who missed out. And they are actually they are the ones who are now put half of Parliament. And their biggest problem, they are trying to cause confusion in the way that it will be even difficult for NRM to implement this manifesto. And for me, Stephen, I know you are a very clear-minded person. Our members of parliament, especially the ones who are now ganging up the opposition, are actually worse than the opposition themselves. Because opposition, they have an agenda. But for them, they are fighting individual and selfish ends. They are not doing anything to the party. But we are waiting for them in
2016. You're waiting. All right. Let's see from our final caller. Special Malo?
Yes, this is Peter calling from Bali.
Yes, Peter in Bali.
Yes, I just want to ask that the gentleman, the Honorable Birahwa, when we release members of the NRM really president, how long is it going to take? It seems like when he speaks that he does not support the issue of presidential term limit, this is just an indication that he's appearing because the president has not supported it.
All right.
They are doing the service to us.
Okay. Honorable Birahwa, most of the questions.
Yeah, thanks so much. I want to thank the callers. First of all, let me say what you are calling impasse is actually healthy. If that parliament accepted everything from government, then it should as well resign, and that money should do a road to BUliisa. So you need a parliament which engages executive. If it doesn't, it is useless. For me, contradictions, as we say in political science, conflicts and contradictions are actually very useful. What matters is how you resolve the contradictions. And actually, the test of leadership is not when everything is calm. Is how do you come out of such scenarios? And the moments are calling for power sober, not hyper, not hardliners. The moment is calling for people who can actually provide leadership, even in the heat of all things. For example, I want to thank my brother Owere, but I also want to remind my brother Owere that Parliament, there can only be 70 ministers. I don't even support a big cabinet, so I don't think everybody is dying to be a minister. But for me, what I'm saying, I would actually want ministers to be ex-officios, to come to account to Parliament, because you cannot be having conflict, constituency presser at the same time. You want electricity in your own village, and yet you are supposed to plan for Karamoja and BUliisa, which doesn't. I have a problem for me with that. Now, on the question of why I am saying Ugandan, there is a difference between democracy and electioneering. You can have an election every 5 years. Yes. Doesn't mean you have democracy. That's called electioneering. What I'm saying, if we are electing on wrong premises, can we first sort out the constitutional matters? And I think on this we agree with the Honorable Bettie. There are some constitutional issues. I have raised 12 issues. At the right time I will come and raise them, but I have once read them here. I even want to talk about the role of cultural institutions. I want to talk about the delivery system. What part of this corruption, if you don't know, the UPE money is being stolen because LOCs and what are involved, money districts is being stolen because councillors are the contractors. If we are using the cultural institution in environmental management, in tree planting, if we are using in food security, they will do better at a lesser cost. If we are using the foundation bodies, we went to schools founded by Catholic, by Muslims, if they are the ones doing UP and USE, there will be less corruption. I have no doubt about that. They even add value by giving us the all-inclusive moral, because part of the corruption is moral degeneration, which we don't get through LOC schools. So the picture is much bigger than people would want to put it. Now, there is the other problem of defining corruption. I have not at any moment said corruption is only an OPM. I have said this before. That's why I was attacking the other angle of us pretending to pay policemen and judges.
Yes. Because
I am saying those who are supposed to be doing the work. A traffic man who did not leave food at home, can he refuse 10,000 on the road?
It's going to be difficult.
You know, one time a Rwandese man refused my $100 when he said, go and pay at a commune. Me, I wanted to give $100, and I got, before I became an MP, and he refused. So that's what we're talking about. That's why I support, corruption is about systems. If you have systems,
$100 for a traffic policeman in Rwanda, and he said no.
Yes. If you have scarcity, somebody will find a way. If a court system of traffic, you are arrested in the morning going to go to office, and you're going to appear in court at 3. this fine system is better because I can pay next week. So it's about scarcity, it's about systems. Some corruption is about beating the system. Some corruption is about scarcity. So it's also a mandate of government to make sure that it deals with these systems which delivers. If the health system is functional, why should I pay a nurse? You only pay a nurse because you know there's not enough drugs. If you don't pay, you get a problem. So let's not approach it on only one side of a nurse. Because if the nurse had all drugs in the store, I am sure they will not be corrupt. So we really need to look at all this. But please understand me. I want to be very clear on this item of those who are inciting and would want to see an impasse between cabinet and parliament or president. It is not good for the country. Nobody is a winner, not parliament, not executive. My children, your children, my voters want harmony. So it's not good for anybody, whether the government side or parliament side, to be fixing programs which are conflicting, which can bring us another standoff and brings this country in some kind of acrimony. We don't need that. We need to coexist. We need to work together. We need to be tolerant. We need to work. And we should remember, we are servants of the people.
Honorable
we are not masters.
Because we are leaving, our time is up. Honorable Bettie, as you answered the other callers, bad constitutionalism versus good constitutionalism.
Yeah, I want to thank all the gentlemen who phoned in, and I wanted to deal with that. Constitutionalism is respect of the constitution. And if there's a bad constitution, it should be changed.
Like they did in 1966.
It should be well, we can change it.
I can only add Anglican constitution. It's about people's mind.
So you can change if there's a bad constitution like this one, which I don't like. There are constitutional provisions of changing it, and it should be changed through means that are laid down. And if they're not satisfactory, some other people change it through other means. So that's constitutionalism. But I want to talk a bit about corruption. The gentleman Michael who brought corruption.
Yes.
I think corruption is wide, but it's unfortunate that we reduce it to just funds. Corruption is actually willful abuse of responsibility or office for personal gain. If you make a decision to give your daughter a job or your son a job when he's not eligible for that job, that is corruption. If you are, for instance, you are a member of parliament and you make a law which benefits you, that is corruption.
Like I'm challenging them to amend the act.
Listen, if you make laws, for instance, with yourself in mind, think about the next election.
That's corruption.
Or if you make laws giving yourself a lot of money because you are the ones who is making the decision, that is corruption. So we really need to broaden, as we do civic education, the concept of corruption. That it's about abuse of public responsibility for personal gain in any decision that you make. And finally, in the last minute, when I talked about disgruntled people, and people keep raising that thing. But for me, I think that we should look at the avenue, what it creates. If they are disgruntled and they use that disgruntlement to cause a problem, then we should not look at why they are disgruntled, but we should look at the problem, because they're using a loophole in the law to cause a problem or to raise an issue.
We have to go. Thank you very much, Honorable Bettie, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance. Forceful as ever. Thank you for coming to Spectrum, Madam. Honorable Mukitaale, Birahwa, thank you for coming to Spectrum. He's a BUliisa County MP, also chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on the National Economy. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. To Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English. Do stay tuned.
My greatest music hit of all